What if the bridges you cross, the air you breathe, and even the electricity powering your home all belong to one company? Wayne Enterprises isn't just a business, it's Gotham's lifeline. But how did it achieve this ultimate control over an entire city? Imagine one family shaping the destiny of an entire city, not for a year or a decade, but for centuries. That's the legacy of the Wayne family. To understand how they built their empire, you have to look back to a time when Gotham was little more than a trading post on the eastern seaboard. Long before skyscrapers loomed over the skyline, before criminal masterminds made it their battlefield, Gotham was growing into an essential hub for trade, and at the heart of this transformation was the Wayne family, whose earliest ventures laid the groundwork for what would become one of the most powerful corporations in history. Wayne Enterprises started humbly in the 17th century as a merchant house. In those days, Gotham wasn't the metropolis it's known as today. It was a port town, with ships coming and going, bringing goods from across the Atlantic. The Wayne family quickly recognized the potential there. By investing in shipping routes and warehouse operations, they ensured that their merchant house controlled much of Gotham's trade. These weren't glamorous beginnings, but they were practical. The Wayne family understood that stability and consistency, not risky ventures, were what would build a foundation for future prosperity. What began as a local enterprise soon expanded its reach, importing and exporting goods to and from Europe, the Caribbean, and beyond. The contrast between these modest origins and Wayne Enterprises' eventual dominance is staggering. Fast forward to the late 19th century, and the company had grown into a juggernaut that touched nearly every part of Gotham's daily life. But this leap didn't happen overnight. It was Alan Wayne, Bruce Wayne's great-great-grandfather, who turned the family enterprise into an unstoppable force during the Industrial Revolution. While most of Gotham's early wealth came from landowners and business barons competing for immediate financial gains, Alan Wayne had a different approach. He thought long-term. He wasn't just building factories or railroads. He was building Gotham itself. Alan Wayne was an innovator, not just in the sense of designing new technologies, but envisioning what a modern city could become. His investments during the Industrial Revolution were pivotal. He poured family money into railroads, seeing them as the arteries of progress, connecting Gotham's industries to new markets. The Wayne Railroad, one of the first major projects bearing the family name, became a crucial link in America's expanding economy. Meanwhile, Wayne Shipping continued to grow, connecting Gotham's port to international trade routes. By placing Gotham at the intersection of global commerce, this ensured that the city wasn't just another industrial hub. It was indispensable. But Alan Wayne's reach didn't stop with transportation. Shipping and railroads may have been the backbone of Wayne Enterprises' early success, but Alan knew that the future of a city like Gotham depended on energy. It was during this same period that he funded one of the city's first large-scale utilities, ensuring public access to water and gas across expanding neighborhoods. In a sense, Alan Wayne wasn't just facilitating Gotham's growth, he was actively crafting the infrastructure needed to support it, making the Wayne name synonymous with progress and modernization. This kind of early investment didn't just make the family wealthy, it made the city dependent on them for survival. Consider Wayne Shipping's role alone. It wasn't just a matter of moving goods in and out of Gotham, it established entire trade networks that connected the city to the rest of the world. During the height of the Industrial Revolution, the shipping routes controlled by Wayne Enterprises brought raw materials into Gotham: steel, coal, lumber, while sending manufactured goods back out. But this wasn't just business for the Waynes. With their control over ports and trade, they quietly ensured Gotham would grow in a way that kept them at the center of the city's economic life. Even today, echoes of that control are visible. Gotham didn't just rise as a trade hub by chance, it rose because of them. These early investments forged a unique relationship between Wayne Enterprises and Gotham. On the surface, the city flourished because of their contributions. Factories were built, jobs were created, and Gotham transformed into a city where innovation seemed boundless. But under the surface, a pattern was taking shape, one that was less about partnership and more about control. Wayne Enterprises didn't just help Gotham grow, it shaped how it grew, deciding where railroads would run, where ports would expand, and ultimately, who would profit from the city's success. By the late 19th century, all of this laid the groundwork for Wayne Enterprises to become the backbone of Gotham's economy. At this point, the company had evolved far beyond its roots as a merchant house. It was now a conglomerate, operating in industries as varied as construction, utilities, and finance. Yet, this success wasn't just about smart business sense. It was about consolidation. Each industry they entered was carefully chosen to reinforce their hold over Gotham. By building railroads, they could dictate where industries would thrive. By owning ports, they controlled trade. By investing in public works projects, they ensured that every citizen of Gotham would come to rely on their infrastructure in some way. And this wasn't just about the city's economy. It was about its identity. Gotham, as we know it, would not exist without Wayne Enterprises. The city's very bones, its buildings, bridges, and streets were financed or built by the Waynes. Even more essential were the behind-the-scenes investments, the kind you'd never notice unless you looked for them. The water you drank, the gas that lit your lamps, the train that took you to work. All of it, in some way, tied back to the same name. For the average Gothamite, Wayne Enterprises wasn't just a company, it was the invisible hand guiding the city forward. But here's the thing, when a single entity grows that large, it stops being just a business. It becomes a force, an essential part of the system. By the time Gotham entered the 20th century, Wayne Enterprises had built an empire so vast and deeply rooted that removing it would have been like tearing out the city's foundation. And that raises a critical question. Was this empire built purely on smart investments and foresight, or was there a more deliberate agenda behind it all? The Waynes may have started with modest ambitions, but by the time Alan Wayne was done shaping the future of Gotham, the company had cemented its status as the city's economic backbone. For better or worse, Gotham's survival was now tied to the success of Wayne Enterprises. And that sets the stage for some intriguing possibilities. Was this growth the result of genuine civic ambition or something more calculated? Wayne Enterprises funded Gotham's schools, hospitals, housing for the poor, and more. But was it really about giving back? Or was there something larger at play? It's easy to admire a company that seems to pour so much into its community. Yet, when you look closer, those investments appear to carry a purpose beyond altruism. The Wayne Foundation, often described as the heart of Wayne Enterprises, became the single largest charitable organization in Gotham's history. But the true question is whether this relentless generosity was designed to help the city or to ensure that Gotham would always belong to the Wayne family. The Wayne Foundation began as an innocuous entity in the late 19th century, with a mission of assisting Gotham's most vulnerable citizens. By the 20th century, however, it had grown into a behemoth, with untold billions flowing into projects that touched every corner of Gotham's social fabric. Under the banner of Philanthropy, the foundation funded orphanages to house Gotham's abandoned children, scholarships to give underprivileged students access to elite education, and public health initiatives to tackle everything from disease outbreaks to addiction crises. In time, the Wayne name became so deeply intertwined with these cornerstones of city life that they ceased to feel like charity. they felt inevitable. The logic was simple yet powerful. If it involved Gotham's welfare, it was Wayne Enterprises that made it possible. One example of the Foundation's impact can be seen in the transformation of Gotham's East End, one of the city's poorest and most crime-ridden neighborhoods. Decades ago, when crime figures painted the area as a breeding ground for violence, the Wayne Foundation launched an ambitious redevelopment program. Well before any city council initiatives or federal funding could step in, the foundation acquired blocks of rundown housing, repurposing them into affordable apartments, community centers, and green spaces. What could have been dismissed as corporate PR instead earned the gratitude of the locals, not just for improving their neighborhood, but for doing so in ways that felt permanent. Schools were opened, healthcare clinics were built. For many, the presence of Wayne Enterprises in those streets offered a glimmer of stability in an otherwise cutthroat city. But underneath the surface, this raised important questions. Was this an act of unrestrained goodwill, or were these investments carefully orchestrated to build something else? A legacy. Consider the Wayne scholarships, for instance. For years, the Wayne Foundation offered financial aid to thousands of students from lower-income households, ensuring they had a path to higher education. On paper, it was an undeniable good. Those students graduated, entered Gotham's workforce, and lifted entire communities with them. But it was also true that nearly all of those scholarships came with ties to future employment opportunities. Opportunities almost exclusively situated within Wayne Enterprises or its vast network of affiliated businesses. Did this help Gotham? Certainly. Did this also strengthen Wayne Enterprises' grip on the talent pool of an entire city? Most definitely. Another layer of this complexity becomes apparent when you look at the Foundation's influence on Gotham's healthcare. Through Wayne Biotech, a subsidiary of Wayne Enterprises, the family funded groundbreaking medical research and opened hospitals in underserved areas. When outbreaks of contagious diseases hit Gotham, it was Wayne-backed teams that deployed vaccines, medical supplies, and care facilities almost overnight. These efforts cemented Wayne Enterprises as the city's savior in moments of crisis. However, this also meant that Gotham's healthcare system became deeply dependent on the Wayne Biotech network. Public hospitals couldn't compete with the level of funding that Wayne-backed facilities offered, leaving countless citizens reliant on an infrastructure that bore the Wayne family's name. All of these actions created something more significant than goodwill. They created loyalty. In Gotham, trust was often in short supply. The city's government was riddled with corruption, its police force had little credibility, and organized crime ran rampant. But Wayne Enterprises? That was the constant. For much of Gotham's population, the company wasn't just a business, it felt like an institution. Its presence was a reassurance that even in the grimmest of times, someone was playing their part to keep the city standing. The Wayne reputation was the antidote to Gotham's dysfunction, and it's no wonder that when people thought of the city's progress, the Wayne family often came to mind before elected officials or public agencies. But there's a darker side to this civic integration. For all the benefits Wayne Enterprises brought to Gotham, there's no denying that its influence came with strings. By creating schools, orphanages, and hospitals to fill governmental gaps, the company didn't just solve problems, it embedded itself into the very framework of the city. Wayne Enterprises wasn't simply another corporation contributing to charity. It became the entity that Gotham couldn't function without. This gave the company an immense amount of leverage. If Wayne Enterprises decided to shift its priorities, entire communities could feel the impact. If its leadership made controversial decisions, there was virtually no mechanism in place to check their power. In effect, this placed Gotham's future in the hands of a single entity. It's worth considering how strategic this all might have been. The idea of using philanthropy to consolidate influence isn't unique to Gotham or to the Waynes. Throughout history, many powerful families and corporations have understood that control doesn't always come from dominating markets. It can come from offering solutions to social problems and from becoming indispensable in ways that elective governments can't afford to replicate. By the time Wayne Enterprises dominated Gotham's infrastructure, the Wayne Foundation was controlling the culture. Helping Gotham's communities wasn't just an act of charity, it was a way of weaving the Wayne name into the very identity of the city. Over generations, this effort ensured that the Waynes wouldn't just be seen as Gotham's benefactors, they would be seen as its stewards. If you lived and worked in Gotham, your life was tied to Wayne Enterprises in ways you may not have even noticed. The hospital you were born in, the school you attended, the roof over your head, and later, the job that paid your salary could all trace their origins back to the same unstoppable force. This created a self-reinforcing cycle. As Gotham grew and prospered, so did Wayne Enterprises. And in turn, the company reinvested into the city. Over time, it became impossible to separate the success of one from the other. But this leaves the question, was this symbiotic relationship built out of care for Gotham's people, or was it a calculated strategy to ensure the family's enduring legacy? Perhaps the two weren't mutually exclusive. By investing so deeply into Gotham's people and institutions, Wayne Enterprises effectively guaranteed that the city's success would always reflect its own. Yet, this level of control also made Gotham vulnerable. What happens when one entity becomes so entwined with a city that it dictates its trajectory? What happens when this empire and the family behind it faces the weight of tragedy? For Wayne Enterprises, its contributions to Gotham's schools, hospitals, and communities weren't just an act of charity. They were a way of securing its place as the bedrock of Gotham's future. The city couldn't just thrive alongside Wayne Enterprises. It needed it to survive. But as we'll see, even an empire backed by unparalleled goodwill and influence isn't immune to disruption. When tragedy struck the Wayne family, Gotham didn't just mourn, it braced for the potential fallout. What happens when the empire itself is tested? And more importantly, who rises to fill the void? When Thomas and Martha Wayne were gunned down on a cold Gotham evening, the city lost more than just two of its most prominent citizens. It lost symbols of hope, of progress, of everything the metropolis aspired to be. Yet, in the midst of that intimate, violent loss, something strange happened. Wayne Enterprises didn't falter. It didn't splinter or spiral. Instead, it grew stronger, expanding its reach and influence in ways few could have anticipated. A company already vital to Gotham's survival became something else. A behemoth that not only thrived, but started to reshape the city in its image. How could this painful tragedy launch an already powerful enterprise into its most dominant era? To understand this paradox, you need to get a sense of what the Waynes represented at the time of their deaths. Thomas Wayne wasn't just a distinguished physician or businessman. He was a civic leader who used his wealth to build the city he believed Gotham could become. His wife, Martha Kane Wayne, came from a similarly powerful family and worked to expand their vision of community-centered philanthropy. Together, they were Gotham's moral center as much as they were its financial bedrock. The couple had a way of mixing personal values with corporate investments, always framing their wealth as a tool to uplift the entire city. When they were suddenly taken from Gotham in the infamous alley shooting, the grief felt throughout the city was overwhelming. But the real upheaval was just beginning. After the deaths of Thomas and Martha, the immediate fate of Wayne Enterprises was unclear. Unlike other powerful families, the Waynes had focused much of their business empire on long-term civic goals, with Thomas assuming a hands-on role in operations. His death left a gap, one that many feared would destabilize the company. But rather than crumbling, Wayne Enterprises leaned on an institution that had been just as carefully designed as its public initiatives: its Board of Trustees. A structure initially put in place to provide oversight quietly became the key to keeping the juggernaut afloat. The board quickly stepped in, consolidating power and ensuring the Waynes' legacy wouldn't just survive, it would adapt and evolve without missing a step. However, this wasn't merely a defensive maneuver. Far from preserving the status quo, the trustees shifted the company's strategy, pivoting towards a ruthless acquisition model. As Gotham entered a period of economic instability, worsened by the symbolic blow of the Waynes' deaths, other businesses struggled to stay afloat. For Wayne Enterprises, this presented an opportunity. The board began quietly buying up failed companies, particularly those in industries adjacent to its existing interests. Construction firms, smaller utility providers, and even early technologies in transportation all became part of the Wayne portfolio. The beauty of this tactic was that it wasn't seen as exploitation to the public. It felt like the company was stepping in when Gotham needed it most. Each acquisition was framed not as a takeover, but as a rescue. Businesses that might have shuttered their doors were saved, and jobs that could have vanished were protected. What this created, though, was a consolidation of unparalleled magnitude. By absorbing competitors and expanding into new sectors, Wayne Enterprises became more than just a company. It formed what some have called a shadow monopoly in Gotham. You could live your entire life in the city without realizing just how deeply Wayne Enterprises was tied to every aspect of your day-to-day existence. The steel that built your apartment building, the subway line you rode to work, the electricity that lit your home. They could all, in some way, be traced back to the Waynes' empire. By the time Bruce Wayne was old enough to take interest in the family company, it had become so synonymous with Gotham's infrastructure that disentangling the two felt like an impossible idea. One of the starkest examples of Wayne Enterprises' growing dominance came in the form of Gotham's economic recovery during Bruce's childhood. After his parents' murders, the city was desperate for stability. Public leaders struggled to manage rising crime and decaying infrastructure, leaving a vacuum for businesses to fill. Wayne Enterprises responded by stepping up its investments. Through partnerships with local governments and other private entities, the company spearheaded urban renewal projects, rebuilding crumbling neighborhoods, and kept trade moving through Gotham's ports. To outsiders, it seemed like Wayne Enterprises wasn't just surviving, it was rising to a new level of relevance. The board's leadership became a crucial factor in strengthening the company's grip on Gotham. What few people realized during this period was just how much the Wayne family name itself played into these developments. Even though Bruce Wayne was far too young to take the reins of the company, his presence as the heir carried enormous symbolic weight. For many Gothamites, the focus wasn't entirely on the board or its strategies, it was on the idea that everything being done was being done in Bruce's name. Bruce represented more than just the continuation of a legacy. He represented hope for a brighter future. Everything Wayne Enterprises achieved during this time carried a quiet implication. It wasn't just about survival, it was about safeguarding Gotham for the eventual return of its rightful steward. But by leaning into this sentiment, Wayne Enterprises cemented more than just its own reputation. It altered Gotham itself, embedding the Wayne legacy so deeply into the city's identity that they became practically inseparable. As Bruce grew older, that entrenchment carried two sides. On one hand, the level of integration ensured Wayne Enterprises could protect and uplift Gotham from within, using its resources to meet the city's needs faster and more efficiently than public systems could. On the other hand, it created a kind of dependency. Without Wayne Enterprises, Gotham as it stood could not function. The city's survival and the company's success were no longer just connected, they were one and the same. This unique relationship between Gotham and Wayne Enterprises raises a question. Can a tragedy like the loss of Thomas and Martha Wayne truly be the foundation for such monumental gain? Some argue it was sheer business savvy, an opportunistic move by company leaders who saw a chance to strengthen their foothold during a period of turmoil. Others suggest it was destiny, tied to the Waynes' unshakable commitment to Gotham's future. Whatever the case, the fallout of that tragedy wasn't confined to the family. It changed the trajectory of the entire city. Publicly, Wayne Enterprises positioned itself as Gotham's guardian, filling the gaps left by its broken systems. Privately, the company entrenched its dominance across every corner of Gotham's industries. By the time Bruce Wayne was old enough to understand his inheritance, the city and the company were more tightly linked than ever before. It was no longer just a matter of influence. Gotham's very existence had become contingent on the Waynes' empire. This level of control brings us to a pivotal moment in the story. While the Board of Trustees guided Wayne Enterprises through one of the most transformative periods in its history, Bruce was growing up in the shadow of that legacy. What happens when the child of a murdered couple becomes the sole heir to a company that has embedded itself everywhere? What choices does he make when that same company becomes part of his personal crusade? And more importantly, what happens to Gotham when those choices begin to blur the line between hero and empire? Because when Bruce Wayne eventually stepped into the family legacy, he didn't just inherit the company. He turned it into something far more complicated, something that would forever change the balance of power in Gotham. What if Batman's greatest weapon isn't a Batarang or the Batmobile, but the corporation that makes them possible? Bruce Wayne's living double life, one as Gotham's enigmatic protector and the other as the billionaire CEO of Wayne Enterprises, gives him a distinct edge. On one hand, he's the Dark Knight striking fear into Gotham's criminals. On the other, he's the public figure sitting at the helm of an economic empire that shapes the city's future. But where do these two identities intersect? And how ethical is it to use corporate resources to fund a private crusade against crime? Wayne Enterprises under Bruce Wayne doesn't just build infrastructure or run subsidiaries. It secretly operates as the backbone of Batman's entire operation. This starts with Wayne Tech, the company's cutting-edge research and development arm, quietly repurposed to design an arsenal unlike anything the city or the world has ever seen. Gotham's criminals may think they're being outsmarted by a genius vigilante with limitless gadgets, but what many fail to realize is that much of Bruce's arsenal comes from billions of dollars in Wayne Tech research. Look closely and you'll see it. Military-grade engineering hidden behind corporate innovation. Where do you think the Batmobile came from? It wasn't spontaneously built in a cave. It's a direct descendant of a Wayne Tech prototype for a military all-purpose vehicle, one that stockholders probably assumed would go straight to government contracts. Instead, the designs were quietly funneled through subsidiaries and vanished into the depths of the Batcave. And it's not just vehicles. Surveillance drones, advanced body armor, grappling hooks, and even the locking mechanisms on Arkham Asylum's most secure cells are tied to Wayne Tech patents. Everything Batman uses in his nightly war against crime can be traced back to Wayne Enterprises' innovations, often reimagined to handle everything from deadly firefights to high-speed chases through Gotham's back alleys. But the connection between Bruce and Wayne Enterprises isn't purely technological. Wayne Biotech, another branch of the empire, does far more than just research cutting-edge advancements in medicine. Through access to Gotham's healthcare system, hospitals, lab testing facilities, and even pharmaceutical research, Bruce is able to gain insights that aid his work as Batman. Need to trace where a rare neurotoxin originated? The answer is in the Wayne Biotech labs. Gotham's hospital networks and databases, many of them linked directly to Wayne Enterprises, allow Bruce discreet access to information no ordinary vigilante could ever obtain. By embedding himself within the city's healthcare and infrastructure, Bruce has essentially turned Wayne Enterprises into his personal information hub. Here's where things get murky. At what point do corporate resources, ones designed for public betterment, stop serving the city and start serving Bruce's personal agenda? Some would argue that Batman's vigilantism is a public service. His nightly patrols keep Gotham safer than its notoriously corrupt authorities ever could. Others, though, might see this as a vast misuse of resources. After all, Wayne Enterprises wasn't founded to create thermal imaging for rooftop stakeouts or experimental vehicles for underground races. These things are made possible by profits that stockholders and employees assume are being reinvested back into legal above-board ventures. Does Bruce's dual identity give him the right to turn Gotham's biggest company into a secret armory for his private war? Or does the end, reducing crime, saving lives, justify the questionable means? Consider surveillance technology. Through Wayne Tech, Bruce has equipped the Batcave with city-wide monitoring systems capable of tracking every single citizen in Gotham. Phone calls, security cameras, even the movement of license plates, all of it can be intercepted and analyzed in real time. While this might help him track criminals, it also presents an unsettling truth. Gotham's protector exercises a kind of control that the people never consented to. The line between keeping Gotham safe and outright controlling it gets thinner when the man in charge of Wayne Enterprises wields this level of influence. Bruce's use of Wayne Enterprises' power also blurs the role of government in Gotham. When roads crumble, Wayne Construction repairs them. When social services fall apart, the Wayne Foundation steps in. And when crime spirals out of control, Batman tackles it head-on. Gotham's reliance on both Wayne Enterprises and its vigilante shadow gives Bruce an almost unchecked authority over the city. At times, it's hard to tell whether he's merely aiding Gotham's survival or subtly molding it into something that can never function without him. This overlap between private interest and public service raises the question, is Batman solving Gotham's problems or ensuring that his company and alter ego remain indispensable? And make no mistake, controlling Gotham was never just about rattling the criminal underworld. The larger truth is that Batman's presence has, in many ways, stabilized Wayne Enterprises' influence. With the perception of the city being under constant threat, whether from supercriminals, mob bosses, or crooked officials, the need for Batman becomes unquestionable. Indirectly, this reinforces the belief that Gotham can't thrive without strong leadership from above. And what stronger leadership exists than the Wayne name? Whether it's the vigilante in black armor or the billionaire in a tailored suit, the result is a cycle of dependency. Gotham depends on Batman to restore safety, which in turn depends on Wayne Enterprises to stay 10 steps ahead of every threat. One glimpse at the overlap between these identities shows how deep it runs. Take the events surrounding some of Gotham's more notorious threats. When villains like Scarecrow or Poison Ivy use biochemical agents to terrorize the city, it's Wayne Biotech whose antidotes emerge. When the transport grid is hacked by the likes of Riddler or Black Mask, Wayne Tech departments work night and day to regain control. Often, Batman's abilities to save Gotham comes down to the fact that the very infrastructure its villains target belongs in some way to Wayne Enterprises. In a strange, ironic twist, this actually puts Bruce in a position of control over both ends of the conflict. The more the villains try to disrupt Gotham's systems, the more crucial Batman and, by extension, Wayne Enterprises becomes in restoring order. This symbiotic relationship between Bruce's two roles, CEO and Savior, also has implications for Gotham's citizens. Most don't know that their protector and their city's wealthiest businessman are one and the same. Yet the effects of this duality ripple through their lives in ways they likely never realize. The cameras keeping their neighborhoods safe, the new security technologies protecting their banks, even the advanced scanners installed at train stations All of them could just as easily be repurposed for Batman's use as they could be for the general public's benefit. This isn't just a company earning its profits while giving back to the community. It's a company whose identity has been stretched into something vast, complex, and nearly impossible to untangle from the city it inhabits. For Bruce, the ethical dilemmas of funding his vigilante mission through Wayne Enterprises likely go beyond the practical. The resources he allocates to Batman take time and money that could be redirected to countless other causes. And yet, the results can't be denied. Gotham's crime rate, while never eradicated, remains in check largely due to his nightly efforts. Still, it's hard not to wonder, is this really about protecting Gotham, or about ensuring that Bruce Wayne's vision of Gotham remains the only one that survives? Ultimately, Batman's success as a vigilante isn't just tied to his training or his gadgets. It's tethered to the sprawling influence of Wayne Enterprises. Without the company's endless resources, from technological innovation to discreet access to data and materials, Batman wouldn't exist in the way Gotham has come to expect. But that raises a deeper question. Is all this about keeping Gotham safe, or keeping Bruce Wayne and his empire untouchable? And what happens when someone else tries to take this empire on? Because one thing is clear, when it comes to the Wayne legacy, nothing about it goes unchallenged. Lex Luthor isn't the kind of man to stay in his lane. When he saw Gotham with its sprawling industries and its global connections, he saw a market ripe for disruption. And when he looked at Wayne Enterprises, he didn't just see a rival business. He saw the empire he wanted to dismantle. LexCorp was already a giant in Metropolis, dominating fields like defense and technology. But for Luthor, being the biggest player in one city was never enough. By targeting Gotham, he wasn't just expanding his influence, he was mounting a direct challenge to everything Bruce Wayne had built. LexCorp's approach to business is a world apart from Wayne Enterprises. Where Wayne Enterprises invests in the foundations of society, like hospitals, utilities, and philanthropy, LexCorp has never been subtle about its preference for power. Defense contracts, weapons development, artificial intelligence, these are the realms where Lex Luthor thrives. And unlike Bruce Wayne, who worked to embed his company into Gotham's social fabric, Luthor's strategy was far more military in nature. His move into Gotham wasn't a campaign of partnerships and goodwill. It was a full-on invasion, with LexCorp attempting to dominate industries already controlled by Wayne Enterprises. Take, for example, LexCorp's aggressive push into infrastructure. Early on, Luthor's company began bidding on major projects like bridge reconstructions and even sections of Gotham's subway system. On paper, these bids seemed competitive, sometimes even undercutting Wayne construction. But there was always a tactic lurking behind the numbers. LexCorp would promise rapid innovation, often using its cutting-edge AI systems to design next-generation solutions for Gotham's aging infrastructure. However, concerns quickly surfaced. Critics pointed out that LexCorp's track record for prioritizing profit over safety was well documented. Cities that had worked with LexCorp in the past often found themselves captive to skyrocketing costs and systems designed to be so complex that only LexCorp could maintain them. It wasn't charity, it was dependency, dressed up as modernization. One of the most blatant examples of LexCorp's attempt to seize Gotham's industries came in the form of defense contracts. Gotham's local government had long relied on Wayne Enterprises for security technologies, from enhanced surveillance systems to emergency response equipment. LexCorp saw this as an opportunity to break Wayne Enterprises' stranglehold on the market. They proposed not only cheaper alternatives, but also introduced highly controversial, militarized urban technologies. Drones capable of autonomous decision-making, AI-powered riot control systems, and surveillance networks that scraped data in real time were just a few examples of the tools LexCorp attempted to sell Gotham. The flashy, futuristic appeal of these technologies did win over some city council members, especially those eager for quick fixes to Gotham's crime. But others weren't so easily convinced. Many questioned what kind of precedent a company like LexCorp would set in a city already notorious for corruption and abuse of power. Luthor wasn't content to stop at infrastructure and defense. Even Gotham's energy sector became a battleground. Wayne Energy had always operated with a focus on accessibility, using much of its profits to subsidize power for Gotham's poorest neighborhoods. Under Luthor, LexCorp Energy targeted the exact opposite end of the spectrum, offering luxurious, high-cost alternatives for Gotham's corporate districts and wealthier enclaves. Beyond the aggressive pricing, LexCorp introduced a slew of innovative, renewable energy projects designed to upstage Wayne Energy's reputation. Solar grids, experimental wind power, even early discussions of nuclear fusion were all marketed as eco-friendly visions for Gotham's future. But behind that green veneer, LexCorp's contractual terms were anything but altruistic. Much like their infrastructure projects, LexCorp's energy systems created long-term dependencies that left cities and their citizens at the mercy of LexCorp's powerful legal teams. What made Lex Luthor's invasion of Gotham especially concerning wasn't just his company's global reach. It was his ruthlessness and unpredictability as a businessman. LexCorp had managed to dominate Metropolis by operating almost like a corporate supervillain. Hostile takeovers, data leaks, and backroom deals were all tools in Luthor's arsenal. It was no coincidence that industries LexCorp couldn't beat through traditional business means often faced sudden, crippling disruptions. Allegations of espionage against Luthor's company weren't uncommon, though direct proof rarely surfaced. When LexCorp entered Gotham, Wayne Enterprises understood that this wasn't just competition, it was war. So how did Wayne Enterprises defend itself against such a formidable rival? Surprisingly, not by becoming more aggressive. Bruce Wayne and his board of directors leaned into the company's legacy, leveraging decades of goodwill that Wayne Enterprise had spent building within the city. For every flashy LexCorp proposal, Wayne Enterprises countered with stability and trust. Where LexCorp's track record abroad inspired unease, Wayne Enterprises framed itself as Gotham's steady hand. This wasn't a fight fought in boardrooms alone, it was a battle for Gotham's loyalty. One key move stood out. When LexCorp attempted to undercut Wayne Enterprises in defense technology, Wayne Tech responded by releasing open-source versions of its crime prevention software, essentially giving Gotham the tools it needed without the strings attached. The move infuriated Luthor, who relied on exclusivity to trap clients in his ecosystem. But for Wayne Enterprises, it was more than just a goodwill gesture. It was a demonstration of their core philosophy: Gotham first, profits second. Another moment that highlighted Wayne Enterprises' resilience came when LexCorp targeted Gotham's struggling neighborhoods. When LexCorp began launching redevelopment initiatives in low-income areas, attempting to brand itself as a friend of the working class, Wayne Enterprises didn't engage in a bidding war. Instead, the Wayne Foundation expanded its pre-existing programs for affordable housing, doubling the budget for rebuilding schools, shelters, and small businesses. Unlike LexCorp's top-down approach, Wayne Enterprises worked with community leaders to ensure the projects aligned with what Gotham citizens actually needed, not just what Luthor thought he could sell them. Loyalty became the deciding factor. LexCorp might have dazzled some lawmakers and power players with its tech, but amongst the people of Gotham, Wayne Enterprises was more than a company. It was part of the city's DNA. That loyalty proved unshakable, even as Luthor poured billions into his campaign to wrest control. By the time LexCorp realized that flashy products and sky-high skyscrapers weren't enough to dethrone Wayne Enterprises, the damage to its Gotham ambitions was already done. But there's an important cost to all of this. While Gotham remained under Wayne Enterprises' control, the battle with LexCorp revealed just how much power the company held. For as ruthless as Lex Luthor was, he represented the kind of competition that normally keeps corporations in check. The fact that Wayne Enterprises could survive such a stark challenge while retaining its dominance isn't just proof of its strength, it's proof of its entrenchment. When one company can fend off a global juggernaut like LexCorp simply by leaning into its local influence, it raises questions about whether that level of power is healthy for any city, even one as chaotic as Gotham. And that's where the rivalry between Wayne Enterprises and LexCorp leaves us. On the surface, Bruce Wayne's empire triumphed. Gotham stayed loyal, and Lex Luthor's vision for the city was soundly rejected. But rivalries like this force us to confront an uncomfortable truth. In fighting to protect its hometown, Wayne Enterprises only reinforced how inseparable it was from Gotham's life. Is this symbiotic relationship really a triumph for the city, or does it reveal an even deeper issue? Wayne Enterprises conquered Gotham decades ago, but now it seems like it owns every piece of its future as well. The question is, does Gotham thrive under this dominance, or has it traded its freedom for stability? Is Gotham thriving because of Wayne Enterprises, or has the company trapped the city in its grasp? At first glance, it's hard to argue with the results. Gotham has endured everything from economic collapse to massive terrorist attacks, and each time, Wayne Enterprises has stepped in to keep the city afloat. Its influence is pervasive, and on paper, it looks like the answer to a chaotic city's prayers. But when a company builds itself into every corner of public life, questions about power and freedom become unavoidable. How much of what Gotham owes to Wayne Enterprises is a gift, and how much is a trade-off? From utilities to media, Wayne Enterprises doesn't just serve Gotham, it defines it. Its dominance across key industries is almost comprehensive, and that's where the ethical dilemma takes shape. When one corporation controls the very systems people rely on, there's a fine line between benevolence and control. Take Gotham's energy sector. Wayne Energy provides electricity to nearly half the city, including neighborhoods the public grid struggled to reach for decades. This kind of service wasn't just about earning profits, it was marketed as a way to improve lives, and it did. Wayne Energy invested heavily in upgrading outdated infrastructure and implemented some of the lowest energy costs in the country for low-income houses. It's the kind of story that looks great in a company's annual report, but it also left critics asking a different question. What happens if Wayne Energy ever decides these neighborhoods are no longer worth the investment? A dependency is created, one where Gotham's most vulnerable communities now rely not on government support, but on a private company's willingness to keep the lights on. This theme continues into communications, where Wayne Media plays an equally outsized role. Gothamites largely see Wayne Media as their go-to source for news, entertainment, and public discourse. It owns stakes in several major television networks, radio stations, and influential newspapers like the Gotham Gazette. This gives the company a unique ability to shape narratives, not overtly, but through subtle focuses and framing. Public perception can be guided by the editorial decisions of Wayne Enterprises in ways the average viewer might never notice. When stories about Wayne Tech's groundbreaking innovations flood the news cycle, how often do you hear about its failures? When debates about corporate involvement in Gotham's culture arise, how often does Wayne Enterprises' influence feature in those discussions? It's not that they blatantly suppress criticisms, they don't need to. With such a vast media presence, they control enough of the conversation simply by deciding what gets emphasized. Wayne Enterprises also becomes most visible and most influential during times of crisis. One clear example of this is the Narrows, the infamous Gotham district devastated after a biological attack brought the area to its knees. Long neglected by government agencies and riddled with crime, the Narrows sat as a ruptured wound in Gotham's urban landscape. In the wake of the attack, it was Wayne Enterprises that spearheaded its reconstruction, pouring billions into rapid redevelopment projects, housing, on-demand healthcare clinics, schools, all of it constructed at unprecedented speed. and with the kind of resources only a corporation of that scale could deploy. For many, this was seen as a new chapter for the Narrows, a second chance at integrating into the city's larger economy. But here's the rub: nearly all of it remained tied to Wayne Enterprises. The new development projects weren't just branded with the company's logo. They relied on Wayne Construction for maintenance, Wayne Energy for utilities, Wayne Biotech for healthcare, and even Wayne-owned broadband providers for internet access. The Narrows may have been rebuilt, but in the process, its residents found themselves living fully within Wayne Enterprises' ecosystem. This raises an even more uncomfortable reality. When does dependence on a private company stop being convenience and start bordering on control? Gotham's unique problems have always made traditional government solutions less reliable than they should be. Corruption runs so deep in the city's leadership that many put more trust in Bruce Wayne than its mayor or police commissioner. But when one entity takes over roles traditionally served by public institutions, that trust comes with risks. If Wayne Enterprises ever falters or worse, decides Gotham is no longer worth the investment, it's not clear how the city could replace everything the company provides. There's also the question of sustainability. From an operational standpoint, Gotham thrives under Wayne Enterprises. But does any system that consolidates this much influence in one place truly last? History shows that monopolies, even well-meaning ones, inevitably collapse or corrupt. The deeper Wayne Enterprises integrates itself into Gotham's operations, the harder it becomes to hold the company accountable. What happens when decisions made within boardrooms begin to impact millions without input from the people they affect? What happens if Bruce Wayne isn't at the helm forever, and his replacements don't share his vision? Gotham's stability seems to hinge not just on a company, but on the personal ethics of one man. That's not a sustainable foundation for a city of Gotham's scale. Critics have pointed out that this level of control doesn't just create risk, it also limits civic freedom. It's easy to praise Wayne Enterprises for rebuilding entire neighborhoods and funding public transportation systems, but those same systems also make it harder for competitors to rise. Can a privately owned subway system truly prioritize fairness and equality when its success is tied to corporate-led efficiencies? Can Wayne Biotech objectively serve Gotham's public health needs if it's simultaneously chasing technological patents to outpace competitor? This makes it easy for Wayne Enterprises' involvement in healthcare to actively stifle smaller medical facilities in Gotham. While the overall quality of care improved, diversity in providers shrank, leaving patients with fewer choices. And yet, for all these concerns, Gotham's reliance on Wayne Enterprises makes one thing clear: it has very little choice. Even its critics admit that without the company stepping in during moments of crisis, the city might not function at all. It's Wayne Enterprises that builds the hospitals, keeps the trains running, and ensures there's power at night. For many Gothamites, the trade-off seems worth it. Yes, the city relies on one company too much, but the alternative, a city where no one steps up, is worse. The Waynes, from Alan to Bruce, have spent generations building Gotham in their image. For better or worse, it's their name that's written into the blueprints of almost every modern institution. But here's the central tension. Does Gotham thrive because of Wayne Enterprises' generosity, or does it thrive because it has no choice but to? Gotham's dependency feels less like a partnership and more like an unwritten contract, one that no one fully agreed to, but everyone accepts. The city owes its survival to Wayne Enterprises, but that survival has come at a price: diminished freedom, fewer alternatives, and a reliance on an entity motivated by both profit and legacy. Wayne Enterprises' dual role as Gotham's protector and unseen ruler leaves an uneasy question in its wake. Has the city been saved from its dysfunction, or has it been silently reshaped into something under the company's complete control? The truth is, neither answer is simple. Wayne Enterprises has undeniably kept Gotham alive through countless disasters, but its dominance has also left the city more vulnerable in ways most of its residents never stop to consider. A city this tied to one corporation can't help but wonder, what happens if the company ever stops watching out for them? As Gotham thrives under Wayne Enterprises' banner, it also lives in its shadow. This unique relationship paints a bigger picture, one worth examining beyond Gotham's borders. What happens when any city, any nation, gives too much power to one entity? As we explore this dynamic, Gotham's balance of survival and control becomes a compelling case study, one that forces us to ask, have they found their greatest benefactor or trapped themselves under an ultimate ruler? Gotham didn't fall under Wayne Enterprises' control overnight. It wasn't brute force or hostile takeovers, it was influence, threaded into the city's very foundation. Railroads, hospitals, power grids, even the stories told in the city's newspapers all tied back to the same name. But control, even when subtle, isn't neutral. Wayne Enterprises exists as Gotham's greatest benefactor and its undeniable ruler, a balance with precarious implications. The world outside Gotham isn't so different. How many real-world cities rely on conglomerates for survival? And how much power does that give away? Maybe it's worth asking, is stability worth sacrificing freedom? What happens when we have no choice? If you enjoyed peeling back the layers of Gotham's most powerful empire, like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more deep dives in the finances of fiction.